Is anyone there?
I guess there is no management teacher or staff over here.
Yes, you are right.
Why do we need a teacher here?
Who is presenting here?
Don't
Shailesh,
know, bro.
Mangesh.
Both the teachers
Okay,
and
Pankaj, do you have another device that from which you can try or another account? Okay. Okay. Okay, just give me 2 minutes. Let's start this call and then we'll see as people drop down. You can keep trying. Until then, I'll just figure this out. Okay, so folks, unfortunately, we've reached the capacity of 1000 and now Pankaj is unable to join. Meantime, as he's trying, let me quickly ask how many of you have installed Android Studio? A quick show of hands. Awesome. And how many of you are Android developers? Which means that you have tried developing apps for Android in the past. Okay, that's quite good number. And how many of you have registered for Solutions Challenge? Okay, and how many of you have not yet registered for Solutions Challenge? A quick show of hands. For those who have registered, put your hands down. Wow. Do you know where to register for Solutions Challenge? Okay. Uh, all right. Shall we share the link with everyone and then maybe you can join from there? How many of you are interested and excited to join for Solutions Challenge? Okay, let me pull up the link for all of you where you can go ahead and register for Solutions Challenge. So, Solutions Challenge is a global competition where students are invited to solve for real world problems, aligning to the theme of UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the registrations for Solutions Challenge are already open. To know more about this challenge, reach out to your GDSC lead who has a lot of information to share around this challenge and what are the guidelines, timelines associated with the same. Um, okay, how many of you have participated for Solutions Challenge in the past? A quick show of hands. The rest of you can put your hands down for those who have not participated for Solutions Challenge in the past. Wow. 100 plus had participated for Solutions Challenge last year. If I understand that all of those who have raised their hands had participated in Solutions Challenge last year. Okay, cool. All right, I think Pankaj should be able to join in a minute. We have figured out a way to have him added. We are really sorry for the inconvenience and I really apologize for the delay in the session. Okay. For those who have developed apps for Kotlin in the past, what kind of app have you developed? Was that a calculator app? How many of you developed a calculator app in the past? A quick show of hands. Okay. And how many of you have developed a food related app as an Android developer? Okay. And how many of you are web developers here? Those who don't develop apps for mobile, how many web developers in the house? Quite some of them. And how many of you have tried integrated machine learning with your mobile application or web application? Okay. And how many of you had participated in Google Cloud Study Jams this year? Cool. Let me get started with the basics of Kotlin 101. I know Pankaj was supposed to take this session, but in the time he is coming back, I will start explaining more about Kotlin and then maybe Pankaj can take from there. Let me share my screen. Alright, I hope you all have installed Android Studio and also have emulators installed. Sorry, my platform is highly loaded that I'm unable to share my screen. It's taking time, but let me get started. Okay, can you all see my screen? Please raise your hands if you can see my screen. Okay, it should load in a minute if you're still not able to see my screen. It's just slow because of the volume here. Okay, I am just waiting for the screen to load, but maybe so let me give you a chance to send messages in the chat section so we can engage better. But I hope you don't spam the platform and promise me there's no abuse that happens when you're getting an opportunity to send messages on the chat section. If anyone is found spamming or not abiding by the code of conduct, we will be taking strict actions against them. I hope we all are compliant to this. Okay. Everyone, please put your hands down. There's no question that is asked as of now. And I hope you all can now send reactions in the chat section.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for sticking around and thank you for being kind to us. Okay, can you see my screen now?
All right. Hey folks, can you see my screen?
Okay, I see some of them raising their hands. Okay, yes, I think your screen is getting shared.
Can you see Pankaj as well?
Not yet. Pankaj, are you around? Are you able?
No, we've tried a workaround. So let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Pankaj, if you can hear me.
Pankaj, you're on mute if you're speaking. Everyone will have to pin Tanvi's screen in case you're trying to see her screen. Install the latest version of Android Studio, whatever is more compatible with your machine. Okay, I will have to unfortunately stop the reactions here. With every opportunity, there's more abuse than understanding. So we'll try to stop you from that. Okay, Kanvi, are you able to share your screen again?
Yeah, I'm not. Am I audible? Okay.
Hey, can you hear me as well? Okay, Pankaj, if you are able to hear me, you're audible and we can get started with the session.
Okay, so let me just share my screen. Tell me if that screen is visible. Okay. Is it up now? Worries. Hey everyone, I hope am I audible? Oops, So let's get started with Android workshop altogether. We are quite late. Sorry for the technical glitch. So let me quickly get started about me and then we'll get started for the Android workshop. So I'm basically the GDE for Android, Firebase and iOS machine learning. I'm into this IT sector from 2015 and I worked on various kind of application. Recently, I worked on augmented reality, ML, Gen AI, And that's the link for my LinkedIn profile. After this session, if you have any question, concern, then you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. So let's quickly get started with our workshop. Well, basically, the first and foremost thing is that if we have to create Android application, we need to use some language. And it's for a very long time, we have used Java as the language to create Android application. But by the time Google has announced Kotlin as the official language for Android app development, things have drastically changed. And now we use Kotlin to create Android application. Java is still alive, but Kotlin is way more popular than Java. So today we are going to see the workshop and we'll get the hands-on with the Kotlin language itself. If you have no prior experience to Kotlin, it literally doesn't matter because we are going to get started right from the very basic. If you have even a little understanding of any programming language, whether it's C, C++, Java, then you're able to correlate this because the way this language has been created is so much user friendly, means the deaf friendly, that you will love this language the moment you learn more and more about this. Well, it's really not practical to cover almost everything about Kotlin in a single session, so we are just going to cover those important aspects which is needed to get started with Android app development. So basically, what is Kotlin itself? Well, this is a general purpose high-level programming language, just like Java. But it comes up with handy features which is missing in Java. So you can think about a language which gives you all the privilege of Java, along with that its own set of functionality on top of Java, like null safety, data classes, higher order function, extension, and so many more. Currently, you need not have to remember about all those things. The only reason why I have added this is just to have this understanding that this language really provides handy features which is missing in Java, and the moment you use this language, you will really fall in love. Well, basically, the first and foremost thing is to have a real hands-on experience with Kotlin itself. So how to get started with it? Well, the good thing here is that for Kotlin language, you need not have to install any software even. We have a website, and on that website, you can literally go, write the code, and execute that piece of code. So if you want to get started with it, just scan this, and this will provide a URL. Let me also ping that URL. It's called a Kotlin Playground. Well, if you have already scanned this, then just head over to that website and then you will see an interface that's named with Kotlin Playground. You'll have fun main, print ln, hello world. So you'll see an interface like this. So here, just click on the green button on the top right side. The moment you run that green button, basically you're saying that to execute that Kotlin piece of code, and right at the bottom, you'll see the output. Well, basically what we are saying here is just to print hello world. That's it. You can change that name as hello world in the green color with double quote with anything you want to print. And the moment you click on the green run button, you will see that in the output console. So let's get started with one more step forward, variable concept in Kotlin. So before we get into the live hands-on, there are two things which we really need to understand about Kotlin. One is variable, another one is function. We'll just see these two, and then we'll get started with hands-on after getting some information with respect to Jetpack Compose also. So variable is actually a sort of container which stores the value for a very temporary period, and you can read that value over and over by assigning that value to a particular variable, and you can even update that value based on need. So basically, you have name and you give some value to that particular name, and you can have multiple variables. If you have experience in any other programming language, I'm sure you might be aware about the variables beforehand. We have different data types for the variable, and the one which you are seeing right now with double quotes, it is an indication that all the variables are of string data type. So the same concept that you have learned in the previous other programming languages, that continues here with Kotlin also. So the structure, the syntax for the variable in Kotlin is you say val, that val as a keyword, and then give the name, colon, data type, and then equals to some initial value. So say for example, if I want to say a variable, so I want to define a variable for holding the count, attendance count, then what I could write is like val attendance count, colon, data type, because attendance count, the way it says like this should be an integer. So I can say val attendance count, colon, int equals to some value. So just try out this on the Kotlin playground. Just write this val count colon int equals to 2. And then try out what happens when you click on run button. Basically, it will let you to run the code. But the problem will come up when you write in the next line count equals to 5 or any other number. And the reason is val and var. These are the two ways through which we define a variable in Kotlin, where val says if you assign the initial value, you can never change that value once again. And this is what you can see with val count colon int equals to 2. Because the keyword is val, it says that I cannot update count once again. But in order to do this, because this is not how the variable work, variable have an ability where we can keep on updating the values based on need. So how can we rectify this? Well, the simplest thing here is change val to var. Instead of val to var. That's it. And thereafter you can update this count any number of times. So pretty straightforward. We have val or var as keyword, then variable name, colon, define the data type equals to some initial value. Initial value is optional. It's not mandatory. So it's not the case that you have to provide always. And the various data type that we have in Kotlin is like int, long, boolean, float, double. All these things are something which you may see in any other object-oriented programming language too. And finally, the second concept, which is very important before we get into the hands-on, is function. So function is the key aspect for Jetpack Compose because unlike any other framework, Jetpack Compose is all about a function. We have a composable, which is nothing but a function. And when we run that function, we see the UI element on the screen. So that makes function a very important concept for Jetpack Compose. But the good thing here is that function, just like any other programming language, functions in a similar way with Kotlin too. So for function, we just need to have a fun keyword and then write the name. This name will be the function name. And after that, in the brackets, you can give the number of parameters. So these are like the arguments. If you have no arguments, just ignore it. If you would have head over to Kotlin Playground, then you might have seen fun main. That's nothing but the main function. And you can see that fun is the keyword which comes in different color. Main is the name of the function, and then the bracket is quite empty. And the reason is we are not providing any inputs, we are not providing any arguments. So this is an optional part. If you have something, provide. If you do not, just ignore. And then finally, we have body. Body is the place where in the parenthesis, you provide all set of commands which you want to execute whenever this function gets called. So the concept is very clear for function and variable. The variable is just like you have val or var, then name of the variable, colon, the data type. For function, if you could correlate, it's quite similar. Fun as a keyword, space, name of the function, and then in the bracket, define the inputs if you have. If you do not have, just ignore it. Just have the empty parameters. In a similar way as you have seen in Kotlin Playground for fun main. And this is a prime example of this. So we have this fun main. Input is nothing, so it's an empty bracket. And then inside parentheses, we have the body for this function main, which says that println hello world. Println is nothing but if you want to provide some output to the console, you can just provide println, which says that print new line. Now, whenever you call main, it will print hello world. Main, just like Java, is the entry point for Kotlin 2. So we need not to call main. We just need to run the code and you will see hello world getting printed in the console. So those were the two very important concepts before we head over to Jetpack Compose. So if you have any question around variable or function, then just write those down in a comment so that I could also get those information. And then I could reply back about the function and the variable. Well, about the Kotlin being single thread or multi-thread, so this is not with respect to language because the multi-threading is a concept that can be fulfilled by a language. So Kotlin offers something called as coroutines, and coroutines provide the multi-threading opportunity. And the best part here is that the name it suggests is like multi-thread, but The way coroutine works is like it's way lighter than even thread. If you try to create, say, a 1 million thread with Java, your system will crash. But try to do the same thing with Kotlin. Try to create a 1 million coroutines. It will easily able to do that. So multi-threading is possible with Kotlin by using coroutines. Okay, about the next question, like how Kotlin is better than Java. Well, about my Android projects, yes, I can share you the link. You can head over to my repository, GitHub repository. You can see the projects. And by the way, today you're going to build a project. So probably you may not need to refer those because you will be the person who will create the project right today. So from here on, you can create your own projects. Now, coming to Kotlin better than Java. So yes, Kotlin is certainly better than Java in terms of multiple ways. If you have used Java before, then the one thing which you might have encountered is like null pointer exception. That's like $1 million question. When you'll get the null pointer exception in a live project. And we try to avoid this as much as possible. Kotlin is completely unsafe. No null pointer exception anymore. We also have something called as extension function. And this extension function is just like on a string, say for example, I want to add some additional functionality, then I can easily do that without inheritance. If I want to extend some functionality with Java, then I need to inherit that class, add additional property, and then use that class. When it comes to Kotlin, we don't need to do those things because what we can do is we can extend the property of the existing class or the data type and add our own functionality on top of it. That's something which we call as extension function. And the best of all is higher order function that you're going to see in today's live hands-on also. Higher order function is a concept which Kotlin allows where you can pass a function to a function as a parameter. Or your function can even return a function. So there are a lot of benefits that you get with respect to Kotlin. And Kotlin, just like Java, is available not just for Android. So if you learn Kotlin, you're able to create Android, iOS, desktop, web, and even your backend development. All those things you can do by learning this language. I think I did cover about the benefits to learn Kotlin language unlike C or Java. Are there major difference using Java and Kotlin? And if I'm a Java developer, then I'm lagging behind. I have less values in this industry. Well, definitely no. Java is not going to die soon. It's not at all possible because we have so many backend system which still works on Java. But the one thing is that if you learn Kotlin, then you are making yourself well competent enough for future if you are looking your career in Android app development. Because the way Jetpack Compose is built, it's actually built for Kotlin and with Kotlin. So it's completely rewritten using Kotlin language, and we do not have support for Java. So basically, now you can sustain for app development because we have so many projects which is using Java. But in future, when industry adopts Jetpack Compose in a very wide variety, then it will be like you have to learn Kotlin. But if your target is backend development, then certainly Java is something which is very widely used. And I don't think so there is any near-time future where you can feel threatened that if you do not learn Kotlin, you'll be out from backend development. So it's just like the way industry is going forward. It's good for some, might not be good for others. And okay, and the next question is like, I have written val count int equals to 2. Then it was showing no main method. Okay, yes, correct. So basically, you cannot delete the main. So fun main Do not delete that. If you have already deleted it, then just reload that website again. It will rewrite fun main because fun main is the entry point. And whatever you have to write it inside the parenthesis of fun main. Because then when you click on the run button, it knows what to execute. You cannot directly write to count val to, it will throw an exception. Okay, and now let me just get started with Jetpack Compose. Later on, let's come back to Kotlin when we have more time. So Jetpack Compose is the next generation UI toolkit for creating UI for Android application. And the good thing here is that if you learn Jetpack Compose, which is again with respect to Kotlin, then you can even use Kotlin multi-platform to create Android, iOS, web, and desktop application by using Jetpack Compose. So it's like one framework for multiple platform. And the thing here is, why do we need Jetpack Compose? Well, when I started app development in 2015, we used to develop with the existing UI toolkit. And that existing UI toolkit is like so complicated to be fair enough that if you just have to write a single piece of code which shows a number from 1 to 100 in a scrollable list, then we need to write anywhere at least 50 to 60 lines of code just for this basic functionality. And our code used to be distributed among Java file, XML file, and then if we have some string.xml, pick from there too. So basically, earlier for app development, you need to be aware about XML language and Java language, along with Groovy for the dependencies management. But basic two things you have to learn, which was about Java and XML. But now with respect to Jetpack Compose, completely forget about XML. Everything is done through the Kotlin code itself. All UI elements, updating UI content, your backend logic, front-end logic, everything is in Kotlin only. And just write small piece of code to get a lot of thing back on the screen. Like for example, the one which I said, 1 to 100 element in a scrollable list was anywhere between 50 to 60 lines of code. The same thing with Jetpack Compose is just like 3 lines of code. So it's been a declarative in nature as compared to the previous existing, I would say that existing UI toolkit. So the declarative approach is like you do not need to be worrying about how the things are done. You just have to worry about what to do, and rest it will take care on how to do. And Jetpack Compose is all about that. So being such a powerful framework, this is just for a visual indication. I'm giving this as an example that if you have to create this kind of UI with the existing UI toolkit, you will take months. It's not just a 1 or 2 or 3 or days of work, because having gradient, shapes, different kind of colors. So all these things is like we used to do it manually by creating different classes, either in Java or in XML, and then club all those together. But same thing, if you have to do with Jetpack Compose, and the moment you learn about how to create UI with Jetpack Compose, you can easily create this kind of UI within few days and with extremely high quality. Jetpack Compose is that much powerful. And industry is really adopting it in a very fast pace. You may see some big names also on screen. So these are a few of the companies who have adopted Jetpack Compose in their production application. And in future, if you are in college, say first year right now, then by the time you come out, you may see Jetpack Compose everywhere, and existing UI toolkit might be only on the legacy project. So that is how Jetpack Compose is moving forward. And the prime reason, as I said, is the simplicity and the powerful APIs that it provides. So basically, with this, what happens for us is when we try to create a production grade application, quality and performance, these are the two things which we cannot compromise. Because the moment you start compromising on this, you will see a negative impact of this application on the user's life, and eventually they'll have a negative rating. That's an obvious. No one want to use a low rating application. Rating is like a benchmark which says that yes, this app is good. So with this framework, we write less code. The API is so intuitive that no need to go through the documentation to know about what this UI is and how to create this UI, because the way you use English term in a similar way, you will have something in Jetpack Compose. So just try out by using hint and you'll get that function. And the way it means is the way it works. So as we write less code, the APIs are intuitive. It truly accelerates the development time. So earlier, the time that we used to take for about 1, 2, or 3 months for development, that has gradually come down to few days, sometimes few hours. It all depends on the UI elements. But the good thing is it's very powerful so as to maintain this code. So it's not like I'm the person who coded this, and if I go out and a new developer comes in and that developer will beat his head at what's written here. Because being intuitive in nature, it's just like whenever some new developer also comes in, that's so easy for the developer to learn just by seeing the code. No need to read through the entire documentation. And the entire framework of this Jetpack Compose, you can correlate all those things with three basic fundamental layout. If you remember these three, you can create any type of UI with Jetpack Compose. And they're very simple. Column, row, and box. That's it. We have even more beyond this, but the fundamental approach that these composable provide, you will see the exact same thing there with some added functionality. Like we have grid layout, lazy layout, but those things under the hood will provide the same functionality if you could understand what column, row, and box is. So let's see each of them and then we'll get started with hands-on. So you have seen this, like column is like one below the other, row is one after the other, and box is like one on top of other. So three layouts, three functionality. So if you have to place element one below the other, you will use column. If you have to place element one beside the other, you will use row. And if you want to place element one on top of other, then you have to use box. Simple fundamental concept. Column, one below the other, row, one beside the other, box, one on top of other. That's it. So let's see the understanding now. Just reply it in a comment. What kind of layout is this? One below the other. Is it row, column, box? What's this? So this is basically a column. And the reason is we are placing element one below the other. Now guess out this. The one which is on the red box, we have something as a background, and then on top of it we have text. So what kind of element is this when you place element one above the other? So this kind of layout is box. And finally, as usual, the only remaining. So what is this when you place element one beside the other? So you can see schedule, progress, and invoice. So they are placed one beside the other. And this type of layout is row. But so far, what you have seen is very fundamental and very straightforward. Sometimes our UI is not that straightforward. Now, if you remember, all those who have commented this as a column, do you really say that it is column? Well, if you see white tiles, then we can directly say that this is column because these tiles are placed one below the other. But how about if we see the individual tile, the one in the board right now? So this is nothing but a row. So what I am trying to make it up here is we have column because we have placed element one below the other, but there is no such compulsion that if I'm using column, I should only and only use column. We can have a club between column, row, and box. So basically, our parent is column here, so as to place element one below the other, and the child here is row, so that we can place the element one beside the other. So if we just take out that particular tile, that tile is of row format. Entire is column and this tile is row. But again in this row, just see this. We have one image, then text, and then some medal. So these are placed one beside the other. How about the center content? We have name on the top, and then below that, we are seeing about $45 per hour. So when we place element one below the other, we use column. So this is what it becomes now. So basically, the parent is column. For this individual tile, we are using row layout. And then inside this row layout also, for displaying the content one below the other, we are using column. So don't get confused much here. Just for the understanding here, you can think about it. If you want to create any set of layout, if you can correlate with the fundamental idea of row, column, and box, you can create any type of UI. You just need to use those things in conjunction with something else. Like here we have used with column, we have placed a row element, and inside row element, we are using column. And that's it. So let's get started with hands-on now.
Okay, till the time Pankaj starts with the hands-on activity, I'd like to understand how do you feel learning Kotlin so far? Do you feel you've learned something new? Do you feel like, you are exploring something that you haven't heard before? Oh, awesome. I see great comments in the chat section. Meanwhile, Pankaj, we're just trying to ping you on the side. So, in case you're away from your device, just wanted to give you a quick heads up. For folks who have to go for mess, we understand that there was a delay from our side. So, yeah, really apologize for the inconvenience caused today. In case you have to go for mess because there are end times for mess, I understand the mess will close. Feel free to drop. We'll try recording from here so that you're able to watch the recording later. But yeah, I don't want to delay your dinner time because we do understand that you have mess timings as well, and please continue with food. For those who are planning to continue, you can start your Android Studio. I hope you have set the installation in place and are ready to get started with coding your first Android app from scratch. Uh, cool. We are starting with the recording. For those who need some more time to start Android Studio, you can take that time for yourself. Um, I hope you know by now how to start your IDE, which is Android Studio. Just in case someone has not installed Android Studio yet, I am sharing the links with you so that you can start the installation in parallel. Just give me a second. So I'm pasting the link in the chat section and I'm going to restrict the comments for a brief amount of time so that my link doesn't get unnoticed. Okay, I just shared the link with everyone on how do you install Android Studio. For those who haven't installed emulator yet, I'm sharing that link as well in the chat section. And lastly, I'm also sharing some links for you to learn more about basics of Kotlin. Because you had a brief, interaction with Kotlin now, and in case you want to explore it further, because you will be building detailed apps after the session today, I am just leaving the link for all of you to explore more about Kotlin basics. Try something by yourself on the Kotlin playground so that you're thorough with the programming language. And then from there, you can also start implementing some intermediate level applications, and then why not start your own startups as soon as you have the expertise and you have a great problem to solve for. Okay, cool. Pankaj might be wondering, I already took a lot of time to start the session and then I'm also eating up his presentation time. So without further ado, I already see Pankaj is sharing his screen. So I'm handing it over to Pankaj who will be taking it from here. Thank you, Pankaj. I hope you're able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Nikita. I can unmute.
Okay, okay. Pankaj, maybe you can go a little bit louder. Your voice is slightly faint, not much, but maybe your device audio is slightly faint.
Okay.
It's better now. Thank you.
Okay. So let me get started with my Android Studio. Well, basically, if you have opened up the Android Studio, you might not see this interface. What you'll see is something like this. So basically, you'll get an option to create new project. Just click on new project and you'll see this kind of panel. So this is the panel through which we create our application. So this is like a way to get started so that we need not have to set up all the dependencies. Android Studio will do everything on your behalf. So just click on new project, and the moment you see this panel, click on this first empty activity. This is for Jetpack Compose with empty activity. And activity is nothing but you can say this like a window that will be visible the moment user clicks on the launcher icon. So that will get launched first. And rest of this, for now, just ignore it. Click on empty activity and then click on next. This is the place where you can give the name for your application. Like I've given like this fancy wallpaper. Whatever name which you want to give, just give the name. This name is the one which you will see on the Google Play Store also. So once user install the application from the Google Play Store, that's the same name which they'll see on their Android device. And package name is something which we follow in a format like com dot company name dot your app name, but without any spaces, all in small. So you can give like com dot, say for example, your name itself dot whatever name that you are trying to give for your project, all in small cases. The moment you try to have capital cases or space, that's where it will start causing some issue. Basically, the fundamental idea here is let everything to be in the small case. And there is no hard and fast rule that it has to be like com dot something dot something. It can even be like com dot your name, com dot application name. But the basic fundamental idea here is to provide com dot your company name dot whatever is the app name. And then you will get the location where this project is going to get stored, either in your C drive or in your D drive, whatever drive that you have. So the important thing is name, package name, and then the most important stuff is minimum SDK. So minimum SDK suggests for which version you are creating your app. Below that, it's not going to work. Like for example, the moment I say this API level 21, it means that all those users who are running below Android 5.0 will not able to use this app. In a similar way, if there is increase in number, say for example API level 24, then what it means is that this app, what I'm going to create right now, those users who are using Android API level 24 and above, only and only those users will able to install this app. Rest will not able to install. So min SDK is really very important. Basically, you can leave this as API level 24 because you can see like 96.3% of the devices it covers. General thing is avoid the very high number, like API level 30. You just see that you will able to target only 59% of the users. So on a safer side, just set the minimum SDK like API level 24. That's it. And then click on finish. The moment you click on finish, you will see your projects getting created. It will download the dependencies and all those things. So it will take a bit of time, but eventually it will come up like this. And this is the place where once your project gets created by the studio, you will have something called as app. Manifest is the place where we define all permissions that we need along with what activity should get launched when user clicks on the launcher icon. You need not to touch anything. Just ignore this part because Android Studio will do this on your behalf. By default, it will write for main activity and says that this is the activity which it should launch whenever user clicks on the launcher icon. All the code which you are going to write, that will be inside Kotlin plus Java. Just open up this and you will see UI.theme and then main activity. Main activity is the place where we are going to write all our code base which we want to execute so as to show the UI element. And if we want to have some PNG or JPEG file which we want to display, Then those we can have it inside resource folder. We have drawable. In this drawable, we can provide all those things which you want to display to the end user. So what we are going to build today is a login screen and then a dashboard screen. These two screens we are going to build. So initially, when user write email, password, click on submit, we'll navigate and launch dashboard. That's it. But in order to do this, we need to add certain dependencies. And the dependencies are nothing but the libraries that we should have in order to do the navigation. Because by default, when you create a project through Android Studio, it will give you very basic stuff to get started with UI component. But it doesn't understand how to navigate from one screen to other screen. So for that, we need to add one library. And in order to add that library, just head over to Gradle script. Open it up and you'll see two build.grade.ktx, first and second. Ignore the first one, just click on the second part and add this dependency, navigation compose and the coil compose. Let me also ping this in the chat. So this two dependencies we need in order to have a navigation and then the image loading capability. Navigation compose is for navigating between screen and coil compose is the image loading library where we can load image from the network. So are you all good? Shall we get started with development now? I can see few has raised their hand. If you have any question, just write down in a comment. No questions? So we are good to get started with the first app. So let's get started. First, let's try to create our login screen. Now, in order to have this login screen, what do you suggest? What should we use? Column, row, or box? You can see we have wallpaper on the top, the text. Below that we have image. Below that we have email field, password field, and then below submit. What kind of layout should we use for this? Should we use column, row, or box? I think you should able to send messages. Try out writing some comment. Row, column, column. Okay, now I can see the comments. So basically, this is a column. And the reason is we have element one below the other. So let's get started. So let's do one thing. Head over to this Kotlin plus Java and the place where you can see main activity. Just open up this main activity. And here, let's create a login screen. So for creating a login screen, we need to create a composable. For that, we can say right at the rate composable, and then just create a function. If you remember, the way to create function is like fun is a keyword, space, function name. And let me just say this as like login, as we're creating the login screen. So simple stuff, we have at the rate composable, which says that this function is not an ordinary function, but is going to create some piece of code that should be shown on the UI. And fun is the keyword, login is the name of the function. So inside this, we want to have a column. The reason why we need column is because we want to place element one below the other. So just tell me about this. This is nothing but a text. So what do you suggest? Just by the English term, what should I use inside this column? The first UI element. With the basic English terminology, this is a text. Text view, text box. So you can correlate that it is something with respect to text. So let's just check it out. Do we have anything with respect to text in Jetpack Compose? So with auto completion, you can see that we have something called as text. And this text is something which we use to display some content. So let's provide a text here. And the text that we're going to provide is like wallpaper gallery. So wallpaper gallery. That's it. Just this simple text composable is sufficient. And we'll see the text on the screen. Now let's again go through the English terminology. This is an image. So what is your suggestion? What do you think should I use after text based on the simple English terminology? Image. Okay. IMG, image view. Well, you are correlating this with image. So let's check out. Do we have anything with respect to image? And yes, we have. So we have the image. So we have a painter. So let's say, for example, let me display login screen itself here. So for that, I have to use painter resource r.drawable.login. And content description is something which we use for accessibility. So whenever you turn on the screen reader, then it will read the content description. Let me see this as like login screen. Simple thing. Image. So we have image composable. We get painter. So we have provided the image. You can just download any image, or basically let me provide you a link. And I'll tell you how to use this link also. Just keep this link handy. Yeah, I can see a comment. I have a doubt. So yeah, what's your doubt? Meanwhile, let's go forward. Now, this is an email field. So it's an editable field. Now, what do you suggest? What should I use? Based on the concept, it's column. I used column. Then I used text. I used image. Now, these are the fields, email and password. So, what do you think? What should I use here? edit text. So basically, we do not have an edit text concept here. So that's a field. So for field, we use something called as outlined text field. So outline text field is something which will give an ability to provide a field where user can edit something. This you can directly correlate with edit text of existing UI toolkit. The added advantage that comes up with outline text field is that it also gives you a fancy border along with a floating label. So that you can get by default with outline text field. So we need two outline text field, one below the other. And finally, we have a button. So what should we use for button? Basically now, as we need a button, so we can define a button. And then we can provide a text for this button as submit. That's it. Our UI element is basically ready for login. We have text, image, outline field, another outline field, and a button. But if I try to run this, it will throw an error. And the reason is this red line. I haven't provided anything for the value and all value changed. Basically, this phenomena is something called as recomposition in Jetpack Compose. Anything, all these composable in Jetpack Compose, they are stateless. And stateless means that once you give the value, it cannot update itself. But this is not how we can create UI for our use cases, because we want text or the content to get updated and to make them stateful. And in order to do that, in order to make the content as stateful, we use something called as recomposition, so that the function will get recompose itself and will automatically update its content. So let's quickly have two fields. One is for email. We can say like where email by remember, mutable state off, like empty field. The one thing which you might have seen before was where email colon string equals to something. This is the way through which we create a variable. And this is an another way of doing this. And by is the keyword which we call as Kotlin delegate. So you can just forget about all those things. Just have this understanding that this is also one of the way through which we create a variable and provide the default value. That's it. Now, in a similar way, let's do the same for the password too. So we have email, we have password. Now for outline text field, let's give this value as email. For password, let's give the value as password. And as its state, on value change. So whenever user enters something through the keyboard, we can say email equals to it. This will get executed every time when user types any character. And this is where we are saying whenever user type any character, update this variable and get those values inside this variable. In similar way, let's do the same for the password too. Password equals to it. Now if you run this piece of code by writing login inside the surface, so if you have anything inside the surface, just delete it and have it here. If you run this piece of code, it will work. So do anyone have question till this point about outline field, text, button, anything? Well, the comment section is open again. So all good till this point? Will that method image not import the whole picture of login page instead of that particular picture? Well, the one which you have seen, that I'm altogether going to change. So the one which you are seeing here with image, that I'm going to change to fetch from internet. This login is going to occupy the full screen. Let me send this entire code if it will allow me to do so. Okay. It will not. Just a minute. Okay, now let me provide you the entire code base here on a Google Doc. Okay, just head over to this link and you'll get the entire code, whatever is written so far. So basically what I have done is, can you please see the first step of Gradle script? Again, my studio was downloading the files. Can you show this by running in emulator? And it sends, could you summarize whatever you have? Okay, so let me just quickly summarize the stuff. Basically, login is a composable. And composable, what I mean by this is, this function is not an ordinary function. Rather, this function is going to show something on the screen. It just says something on the screen. It doesn't understand what to show. And composables are those which are shown on the screen. Column is something which we have seen before. If you want to place element one below the other, we use column. And what we are going to place one below the other is text, image, outline field, and a button. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 UI elements we want to show. Just count this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have 5 elements. Text, image, outline text field, button. Now, if I run this, you will not see this exact same UI. And the reason here is that we just created the UI element, but we haven't aligned it properly with respect to this UI. And also, let's change this image. Rather than picking this login, let's pick the original image that you want to display in our login screen. So if we want to pick an image from the local, from this drawable, we can directly use image. But if we have to pick from a server through a URL, then we have to use our coil library. Coil library is something which you can see that we have it in the build.gradle. This library gives us an opportunity to download image on the fly just by providing a URL. So for that, rather than using image, we have to use async image. And here is a model where we can provide the URL. So let me paste the URL here. So model. So this async image is going to download the image from this URL, and that is what it's going to display also. Let me again say the content description as login screen. That's it. And we are actually good to go. So let me run and show. This will certainly not look like this login screen. And we can bring it to this level in just few matter of seconds. Just we need to add few additional parameters. But that's a fancy stuff on top of this. So let's just quickly run and check this out. So let me run this app. Meanwhile, as this is running, do anyone have any questions? Still taking some time. So basically, once this gets created, then we will see something on the screen, and then we'll eventually make up to this level. Okay, so here it is. Now, just see this. This is our original screen, what we want, and that's the screen that we are seeing. So what can we do to make this screen look exactly alike the requirement? Let's get started right from the very basic, from the text. The one thing which you can see is that this text is not like a normal text. It's an italic way, the cursive mode. So let's change our text. So we can define text as font family. Looks like font family cursive, so that it will be like cursive in nature. And let's also change the font size. Let's make this as like 16, or rather than 16, let's have it like 36 SP. SP is like a scalable pixel, which we use for fonts, and DP is something which we use for the other UI element. SP is only for font, DP is for rest of other things to define the size. And then we can have like a modifier. This modifier is something where we can change the shape, size, layout, alignment, everything. We can do those changes with respect to modifier only. So you can say modifier.align, because we want to place it towards the center. It's coming right towards the left. We don't want that. So let's say alignment as alignment.center horizontally. Also, our image had this text like quite bold in nature. Currently, it's quite normal. So we'll change this to like font weight dot extra bold. That's it. So we are good now. Let me just run this, and then let's check out our UI element. So instead of wallpaper gallery coming towards extreme left, you should able to see this towards the center with bold font, and that is what you can see here. So basically, it is coming towards the center, and then it is quite similar to what we see here. The space is something which we'll look later on, but let's change this image also. Like, let it be with a rounded borders, and then we'll have this outlined text. So let's change our async image. This is consuming a bit of space. So let's change the width and height. So as for this text, you have seen modifier we have used to place the element towards the center. In a similar way for this image also, let's define the modifier. And through this modifier, we are saying that occupy the entire width, and thereafter let the height of this image be like, say, 180 dp. And as I said, only and only for text we use sp, and for rest of others, to define the size, we use dp. Also, this is rectangle in shape. We had that in a rounded shape. So let's make this as like rounded corner shape, and we'll define the corner size to about 16 dp. So if I run this now, so you'll see wallpaper, and this image will come along with 180 size and rounded corners. Thereafter, finally, we'll just touch upon the outline text field. We'll make button to look like the design, and then we are good to go. So the one thing which you might see here is it is not having rounded borders. So the reason here is we haven't defined the content scale. So what it says is that we have defined the size as occupy the entire width. And we also said about the height to be like 180 dp. With content scale, we said that stretch the image to entire width and let the height be 180 dp. And in order to do so, if you have to crop certain part, just crop it. With this, it will come exactly as we see here. But let's quickly define the email and password too. Now, in order to show email as text, we just need to provide label. And that label we can provide like email, and label for password we can provide like password. But again, this is not occupying the entire width. So in order to do so, just like the way we did for the image, let's do the same by using modifier. Let this be like fill max width. And here also is like fill max width. Now this will occupy the entire width. In a similar way, our UI for submit button also shows that it should occupy the entire width. So what we're going to do here is, for this button also, let's set the modifier to be like fill max width. That's it. Now let's run and check out our UI. Well, this spacing is something which you have to provide yet. So currently it will look exactly like this, but without the vertical spaces. That vertical space will add on, and then we are good with this design. So here it is. So let's make this screen to be exactly similar to our requirement by providing spaces. So in order to provide a space in the column itself, let's do one thing. Let's say this column to occupy the entire size. And then let it leave some space towards the top and bottom and towards the all side. For that, we are saying padding. So it will leave about this much space from top, left, bottom, and right. And thereafter, we are saying for the vertical spaces, provide the vertical arrangement as arrangement dot spaced by, say let's provide a space of 16 dp. Now all this text, image, outline, outlined, and then button will have a 16 dp space. But our UI says that for this wallpaper, we need to leave some extra space on the top. So if you want to leave some extra space, that's where we can use spacer modifier with the height as, say, let me define this as 16 dp. That's it. Now let's run and check out our UI. And that's it. So you could correlate with both of them. Our UI is exactly matching with the need. And we achieve this all by defining the parameters of a function. We did not define how to do the stuff. We just said, what do we need? For text, we have defined the text. We defined the font family as like we need cursive in nature. We also defined the font size, that we don't want a normal size. Let this be a bit bigger. So we have given like 36 dp, 36 xp. And then we also said that let this text to come towards the center of the screen. So that's where we use the modifier. And then made this text as bold. In a similar way, we have the image, which is occupying the entire width, complete width. And we have defined the height to be like 180 dp. Thereafter, we also change the size, means the corner shape, to be like rounded edges. Thereafter, we said that in order to make this image occupy the entire width and height as 180 dp, if system need to crop the image part, let it crop. But I want this image to occupy the entire width and the height of 180 dp. That's what content scale.crop is doing. Thereafter, we have outline text as email and the password, the place where user can enter something. And thereafter, we have submit button. Click on submit, and the moment you click on submit, this will get executed. That's it. Our UI element for this login is ready. Now, do you have any questions for this screen so far? Or no questions? Yeah, let me update the code so you can get all those things. But before that, let me show one stuff. Let me write something for the email. You may be able to see the text. Let me do the same thing for password. You can still see the text. Well, our password is actually not meant to be like this. It should be hidden from the users. So it should come like ... when you enter the password, not something like this. So what should we do here? Well, basically for password field, you have something called as visual transformation. And we can say this is like password visual transformation. Just by adding this line, it will no longer be visible with a normal font. It will be like ... And in case, if you also want to change the keyboard type to support password, then you can define like keyboard options. Keyboard type. And here you can say like keyboard type.password. Now if I run this code, you'll not see this text in the password field. You'll see it in dot dot dot. So let's write something for email. I can still see. For password, it will be like dot dot dot. Now it no longer shows those characters just by using visual transformation. Let me update this code. Okay, so I updated the code in that Google Doc. You can get this entire code from there. Okay, any questions? Does password box takes input form of stars? Star is actually not for this password box. We have some other fields. Why does it take so much time to get output or run the program? That basically depends on Android Studio. So currently, because I'm sharing screen on a video call, so the system is running slow. But if you have a better system, then probably it will run in few seconds. Why don't we start by empty view activity, design the XML? Well, basically, Jetpack Compose is completely out of XML. There is no place for XML. You have to create your UI element by using Jetpack Compose, the Kotlin code itself. No more XML. What to do if you want to display pound instead of hash? So basically, you just need to override this password transformation and you need to create your own and provide this visual transformation. So that is also possible. You just need to create a custom password visual transformation and then change that stars or dots to whatever you want. Running this app on emulator works fine, but when I'm running on my phone, all the components are in a messy alignment. What's the problem here? Well, if you're running this on a phone with a messy alignment and it's working on emulator, then the only thing is that you just need to uninstall the app from your original device and then reinstall it. Basically, what it might be doing is that instead of running entire app, it might be trying to update the UI element. So just uninstall and reinstall once again. How to add I button to see the password that I've entered. So, well, we have support for that also. You can have an indication towards the end, and thereafter we can add a logic that whenever I button is clicked on, store it in a variable like true false, and then change this password visual transformation. So basically it will be like if else. Say for example, you will have some variable and then you will have like visual transformation as none on a click of I button. So whenever your variable will have value as true or false, accordingly it will pick either password visual transformation or visual transformation as none. It can pick any one of this. Okay. Now, shall we get started? Okay. What's the function modifier fill max width? Well, basically modifier is the one which can do anything with respect to its visual look and feel. So modifier.fill max width says that whatever is the screen width that it can occupy, fill the entire width. So here with fill max width, as we are using column, we said at fill max size, that means occupy the entire width and the height of the screen. So basically when we say fill max width, it says that for whatever width that the screen is having, occupy entire width. That's what fill max width means. Let me share the link for the Google Doc. Okay, so let's get started for our next screen, the final screen, and that is pretty much straightforward than this because we don't have outline text field and other things. So for that, let's create our dashboard. So we are done with our login. This is all done. So let's create another composable now. You can just write COMP and hit enter. It will automatically write @composable and fun. So let me give the name as dashboard. Now inside this dashboard, what we are going to do is we are going to create a dashboard screen which will look like this. Now who can tell me what kind of layout should I use here? You have seen about three row, column, and box. What do you think? What should I use here? Row and column, row and column, row, column, grid. So grid is something which is correct here. So because it's a combination of a row and column, so we have something called as grid composable. And because we will have a number of elements which will go beyond the screen, so we should also have the scrollable property. So what we can use here is we can use something called as lazy vertical grid. Lazy vertical grid. And this is where we have to define the columns. So based on our UI element, we just want two elements. So we'll say column as grid cells dot fixed, and we'll say two. That just display two elements, one beside the other. And then let's get inside. Here we'll say items. This is where we need to provide a list. So let me just copy this entire list and paste it here. Let me also paste it in that Google Doc. So just have this list. This list is something which we are going to use to display images in our composable. So let's copy and provide the list here. In case if you still see a red line like this, just keep your cursor on this items and hit Alt and enter. So let it import this items. If cursor is not working here, just place it on top of this or item. Anywhere it should work. Basically, an underline will come below this items. Then just click Alt and enter. It will import the required statement. And now we have seen our image loading part. Let's just copy and paste this. Copy, paste, but instead of URL, we are going to get the URL from this items function. We can just say like it. That's it. And let's set this content description as null. No more accessibility as of now. And that's it. So let's increase the height a bit, say about 240 dp, and we are good to go. So let's run this dashboard. Instead of login, let me say like dashboard and run this app. So this is what the dashboard code base is. You just have a lazy vertical grid. How long this will go? We are just about to end up. So in 10 minutes, this will end up. Because we have almost reached towards the end. So this is what it shows with lazy vertical grid. But this is nowhere near to our required design. So what we are missing out here is we have the corner shape, but we are missing the spaces and the border. That's it. Let's just add these two things and we are good. So in order to add spaces, let's add a modifier. We can say like occupy the entire width and height, and then horizontal arrangement like arrangement dot space by say 12 dp. So that's for the horizontal spacing, and for the vertical spacing, let's say find arrangement dot space by like 12 dp. Also, let's have the entire padding also towards left, right, top, bottom. So we'll define like padding value as say 16 dp. And the last missing piece of code here is to define the border. So for this async image, after this clip, let's create a border. The border width is 2 dp. Color is like black color. So color dot black. And then we can have like rounded corner shape 16 dp. So we are saying that have a border of 2 dp width, black in size, and it should be a rounded corner. Now let's run this. So our UI should look similar to this. And here it is. This is scrollable content. That's it. So we have our login screen, we have our dashboard screen. But we are manually calling this by defining dashboard or login. So let's do it on a button click. So that is the fun piece for this today's hands-on, which is extremely simple. Just 4 lines of code. So we need to create a navigator, and basically this navigator knows how to navigate between one screen to other screen. So we can say navigator like equals to remember nav controller, and let's have the nav host. We'll pass the navigator here. So nav host is the one who creates the graph, and navigator is one of the component who knows how to navigate between those graphs. So we'll define the start destination as login. So in order to create graph, we have to use a composable function. Let's say this is login. And we can call the login composable. Then another to create a graph for another component, we can say like dashboard. You can say this like dashboard. That's it. But what we need to do is that on a click of a submit button, we need to navigate to dashboard. So this is something which may go over your head, but you can search on Google. So this is something which we call as higher order function. So we will have a function as a parameter. On all success, the syntax is called as a higher order function. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm not checking anything. Just saying that on a click of a button, call this function. And this function we can call on login. So on success, we can say navigator dot navigate dashboard. Simple. So we have navigator who knows how to navigate between screen. We have nav host who creates a graph. So this graph is created based on this composable. So it have two nodes, login and dashboard. And navigator dot navigate navigates us between the screen. Let's finally run this. So we have given the start destination as login. So get started with login. So show the login screen. On the submit button, navigate to dashboard screen. That's what is written here. So we started with the login screen. Now on a click of submit button, this will get executed and it will call the dashboard composable, and we'll see the dashboard screen. So let me click on submit, and now you can see the dashboard. So this is how we can create app with Jetpack Compose. Not a very big piece of code, but we have got that functionality. And that is something where I can say that we have reached towards the end of this hands-on. Do you have any set of questions?
Pankaj, we have some questions in the chat section. In case we want to take one or two, because I know it's late for you as well.
Okay. So let me just check out. Is async image denote asynchronous nature of Kotlin? Well, async image do denote about async nature. So what it basically means is that execute this code, but at this point in time, you will not get the image. So it will do a network call in the background, and the moment it gets the image, it will update the content. So you can treat it like a placeholder. It is similar to JavaScript. It's not that similar to JavaScript. It is rather similar to React JS. Yeah, sort of this. But if you are from a React background with React JS, then yes, you'll find it quite similar to React JS. But yes, in terms of JavaScript also, you can correlate this. LinkedIn ID I can provide. Next question is about that is the LinkedIn ID. Now next, is Jetpack Compose also available for Java? No, Jetpack Compose not available for Java. Jetpack libraries are available for Java. So Jetpack libraries are not for the UI element, rather that is for the functionality. Jetpack Compose is only and only for UI elements. So that's basically the UI framework. This is written in Kotlin for Kotlin. So basically, if you have experience with Java, do try out Kotlin. Kotlin is really not complicated. You can easily find it so much differently the moment you start learning about Kotlin. But Jetpack Compose is for Kotlin. Are there any good extensions you recommend for getting snippet of development? Yes, so we do have it. So we have something called as Studio Bot. Studio Bot is something which you can directly ask what do you want, and then machine will write the code on behalf of you. So it is as simple as you just define what you want, and there is a chatbot which will write a code along with test cases for you. But that I would say do not directly jump into that, because not many big companies or the enterprises will rely on it as of now because it's in early stage. So you need to have the understanding on your own. And there is a Compose camp documentation available. So basically you just go over to that Compose camp documentation site, and you'll see a lot of content which Google team has created to learn about Jetpack Compose and just get started with Jetpack Compose even without having any prior knowledge of Jetpack Compose. Updated the code, yes, I did updated. Can share the syntax error which is open code error in the app. Can the code syntax error be there in future, such as open code error in the app? Well, that open code error in the app, that is something which the apps developers can probably say about what's this issue. But basically the one which you are asking about, that correlates to the backend API call. Generally, in any application, when we provide this kind of functionality, we rely on the backend server. We send the code, we get the response from backend, and if backend says that this coupon is like not valid, expired, then we just display that content. So it's basically not a client-side issue, but rather client is sending this to the backend. Backend is giving some sort of error, and that's what they might be displaying. But Swiggy should know better about how do they handle it. But this is what generally happens. It's much similar because it's a declarative UI. Yes, it is declarative UI. Any other questions we have?
No, I think all good. Thank you so much to all those who stayed back until the end of the session. It definitely shows your desire to learn new things and your willingness to also elevate your learnings about Android. I really appreciate for all those who would stick around and learn from the amazing session that Pankaj delivered today. My sincere apologies to everyone for the hiccups that we experienced today, and that was definitely not the experience we would like our community to have. Regardless of all those challenges, I hope learning remains the primary goal over here, and you got a lot of new insights and knowledge that you are looking from today's session. Special mention of thanks to Pankaj, who stood around despite the hiccups and managed to deliver fantastic content today and managed to most importantly keep calm in this situation. I hope you all give us another chance to bring more content to all of you, mostly the new years. And I hope you all until then build Android apps using Kotlin and then participate in Solutions Challenge. With all that, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of the evening. Bye everyone. Take care.